Hey, so translation number 3 today, and we'll just get right into it. So there's not really a solidified phrasing for this one because it kind of works a couple different ways, but it usually comes out as me saying something to the effect of, if thinking about myself makes me depressed or arrogant, then I think about myself too much. And so it begins from the idea of course, like other things have been that we've talked about, the mentalities that a lot of people have these days, and being kind of depressed or arrogant is a common theme, and we've talked about that before. But so, as I was thinking about that idea, I came to this translation, this conclusion, that when you think about words like narcissism or egocentrism or being conceited, by definition they're always related to the arrogant side of things, or being more concerned with yourself than you are with other people, or thinking highly of yourself. But in this case, with where I was going with the idea, that's only one side of the spectrum, because if we believe that everyone is imperfect and that everyone has work that they need to do and that whole thing, then, and also if we believe that according to the Bible everyone is at the same playing field, that we all need Jesus, and he's the only qualified individual to deem us good, per se, then that means nobody's any better than anyone else in reality. Of course, we can strive to be better, to be good, and to live according to what God dictates is right and what's good. But everyone is just as human as the next guy. And we're all in different stages of our maturity and things, all that stuff. But anyway, so if I'm looking at myself and I'm becoming depressed and self-deprecating about the things that might be wrong with me or the things that I can work on, then that's more than just wanting to do better. That's leading you into a place where now it's just not worth doing better. I'm just too far gone. Like I mentioned last week, some people have the conclusion in their mind that, oh, I'm just too far gone, I'm beyond redemption, or whatever it might be. So that's the other side of this coin. Of we can be conscientious of ourselves, going back to the other things that we've talked about, but once you get to the point that it becomes a problem for you, that it develops issues for you, and different people have different ideas of what would be an issue, like being arrogant. But if it develops issues objectively, if there are negative effects to your view of yourself, my view of myself, or just the amount of time I spend thinking about myself, then it's a bad thing. So that's the conclusion here. And so of course we would say that thinking of yourself too much and all that, the narcissism and all that stuff, being conceited, is the antithesis of humility. So really, those two people on the two ends of that spectrum are not humble people. basically. And in terms of humility, one of the most memorable or notable explanations of humility that I've heard was from C.S. Lewis, where I have the quote here because I don't remember it exactly, but I like it the way that it's exactly said. He wrote in his book Mere Christianity, "Don't imagine that if you meet a really humble man, he will be what most people call humble nowadays. He will not be a sort of greasy, smarmy person who is always telling you that, of course, he is nobody. Probably all you will think about him is that he seemed a cheerful, intelligent chap who took a real interest in what you said to him. If you do dislike him, it will be because you feel a little envious of anyone who seems to enjoy life so easily. He will not be thinking about humility. He will not be thinking about himself at all." So you see the correlation there, and especially with that that first part, the idea of what most people think of as humble, not a greasy, smarmy person who's always telling you, of course, he is nobody. And it's been phrased elsewhere that being humble is not thinking less of yourself. Being humble is thinking of yourself less. So it fits perfectly, which means that I was right, according to this guy. but anyway, so that's another staple of mine. It's a translation of mine that's important to me, because it's easy to get caught up thinking about yourself and focusing on yourself, even with good intentions. You can start off with being conscientious and being willing to improve and looking for those areas that can be improved upon. But even then, that would be sort of the counterbalance to seeing all the good stuff about yourself and you becoming a little too haughty about it. So even on that other side, which can be a strength, can become a weakness if it is taken too far, and you become that greasy, smarmy person who's always being self-deprecating, and of course it leads to many other very sad and adverse circumstances and behaviors. So that's about it. But the reason I wanted to talk about it today was I've been thinking about talking about it for a few weeks now. This was the next translation in the sequence that I've had in my head, and it just works out well with what I talked about last week, the song that I played last week. The focus cannot remain like the end of that quote. The humble man won't be thinking about humility. You're not trying to be humble, because I've heard it said humility is the only thing that once you think you have it, you've lost it. So once you say to yourself or to somebody else, yes, I'm humble, you are no longer humble. and it makes perfect sense. But so humility is not the thing that we're focusing on. It's not us, our who we are necessarily. It is to a degree, but the main focus should be back to what God says and what God requires. Because the bottom line is that we're going to fail at being humble. It's sort of just human nature to not be humble. So no matter how hard we try, we're not really gonna get it right. And the ruler that we would be reaching for anyway is perfection, which is not gonna happen. So the focus should be, like I mentioned last week, it's about what God is doing, what God is revealing in the road that I'm walking, or you're walking. you are walking. Because really it's only by his allowance that we can do better. Like literally, how I've mentioned before, he literally gives us the ability to walk and breathe and things like that. So the focus is on what he wants for me, not what I could have attained or could be. And it also fits in with this week. I've been studying philosophy a lot more, and it's very much a works-based mentality of what you can attain, what knowledge you can have, and what wisdom you can bestow on the ignorant. And so it's a very self-centered, self-reflective and introspective, but it takes it to that next step, to the negative side of things. There's a balance to everything. There's always a scale, and midline, more often than not, 9 times out of 10, is better than being, hard right or hard left. We won't get political now, but anyway, so that's just been something that I've been thinking about recently, and ultimately it brings me back to thanking God for the work that he continues to do inside of me and making me more like him. The essence of humility, the source of all that is selfless and truly thinking of others before yourself. And that's just the way that God's economy works. It's upside down, like how that quote said. It's not what most people would call humble nowadays, or what most people would call effective or good. Being a team player. Nobody likes that anymore. It's all me, and I'm great, or I'm not great, and I don't deserve to, whatever it may be, or being so afraid of the views of others or people seeing your shortcomings that you never do anything. But anyway, so that's what's been on my mind lately. What's been on your mind lately? I always feel like there's something more that I could say, but at the same time, I'm looking at the time. It's been 13 minutes that this has been going on, and I'm always like, I could go longer. We've already done 15 minutes before, but we've also done like 6 minutes before. So I'm sure this is enough. This is midline. Not too bad, not too much. But I digress for now. So I'll see you next time.